It's very interesting, of course, because when you go back throughout history, you'll find, for example, that the Madiba at one time, Nelson Mandela, with his ANC, they were considered to be terrorists. When you go to Menachem Begin in Israel, the British considered him and his group to be terrorists.
In Burundi today, the ruling party was labeled as a terrorist organization as well.
That is correct.
It was,
and now it is the ruling.
Now it is the ruling party. In fact, today we are even negotiating with the FNL, which was on the same list as the LRA.
Very interesting.
Yes.
You are tuned to Straight Talk Africa.
I think there is a need to reflect on new dynamics that can regulate government actions, especially in as far as governments become terrorists and terrorize their own citizens, which is in most cases the basis for terrorist organizations.
Thank you very much. Andrew, good afternoon. You are most welcome to Straight Talk Africa. You have 1 minute.
Okay, good afternoon. I'll try and be brief. It's unfortunate that 9/11 was watershed, and it gave many governments on the continent to raise their defense and spend millions, like the case of Dr. Besigye, and lawyers spent millions on prosecuting him without much success. So, and there's plenty of property and so on and so forth that's causing war right now. So my question for Dr. Besigye is violence justified? And I hope it can be very unequivocal.
Can you be very brief and respond to that question, Dr. Besigye?
Can you get me the question again?
The question was, is violence justified?
No, violence should not be justified at all. But the point I would like to especially bring out is who starts the violence. I mean, if you attack me, then obviously I have a responsibility, I have a duty to defend myself.
I see.
And where governments attack their citizens, the citizens have a justified right to defend themselves against such governments.
Thank you very much. Now, Frederic, at what point, for example, should the international community come in on the side of the people as opposed to be on the side of an individual who happens to be, for example, a president who is terrorizing his own people using state machinery?
Well, here's what the international...
Because there is a perception that among a lot of Africans that the international community seems to be insensitive in a lot of ways. They look at elections which have been stolen, fake elections, and they validate them.
Well, the international community, let me first say that some countries, sometimes they do not act as a whole. For example, there is not like a policy of the international community towards, one country. It depends sometimes on, for example, Russia might support one country, right, whereas the U.S. does not support it. China might support Sudan, whereas the U.S. opposes
But there are
Sudan.
some of the players who are even more important
absolutely
than others.
I think the most important thing, what Western countries who make up actually the big chunk of what we call the international community need to understand. They need to understand that when there is a lack of good governance, when people don't have avenue to voice their frustrations, when there is a lot of poverty, when these states become failed states, and when states become failed states, they become a danger to the international community, because these places become safe havens for all sorts of radical groups. They become uncontrolled territories where you can, smugglers of all sorts of trafficking drugs, arms, can do that. Look at Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau has become a hub for drugs because it's a failed state.
But what about
Somalia?
When a leader is the Nyampara, Frederic? A leader has basically played the role of supervising their interests, no matter how they are in conflict with the interests of his own people.
My problem mainly is that most of the international community, they play short term. They don't play long term. You might put all your eggs, with one leader, but he's not eternal. The country is still going to be there, and people are going to still hold grudges against these countries who backed these leaders. I keep thinking about in the case of Somalia, for example. Everybody knows that the role of Ethiopia in Somalia is a nefast one. That it needs to get out of there, and everybody the Somalis are saying themselves, look, you know, we are blaming not only Ethiopia but the countries who are backing Ethiopia. And I don't know how, you know, it doesn't matter what these Western countries are going to do in the long run, but I can assure you that the Somalis will always have a grudge against the so-called international community for closing their eyes on the abuses of the Ethiopian government in Somalia.
So in the short run, it might be okay to support a dictator because he supervises your interests, but in the longer term, your interest, in fact, could be very hard.
And actually, it's even dangerous for yourself because, you know, you're creating angry people.
Well,
yes.
On that note, thanks to our distinguished guests, Frederick Ngoga Gateretse, Regional Manager for Africa, iJet Intelligent Risk Systems, and Dr. Chiza Besigye, President of the Forum for Democratic Change. He joined us live from New York. Thanks to you all and affiliate stations, along with our viewers and listeners. We thank you for tuning in.